What up, you weirdos? Dave here, and I like knives. Here to talk to you today about a knife that I like quite a bit, the Kershaw Dividend. Now, this is a piece that was released to much fanfare with a blade of 3 inches, a handle length of about 4 1/4, handle width, a closed width of 1 1/4 inches, and a depth. This is probably my favorite part of just over 1/4 inch, between 1/4 and 1/2. This is a very thin knife, and it makes me happy. Blade 420 HC and handles on this model of aluminum. Now, because this is one of Kershaw's big hits, it does have multiple versions, and this has aluminum handles, but GRN handles are also available for about $10 less. And this has 420 HC blade material, but M390 is also available. Mine is actually on its way, and that is quite a bit more money. I forgot exactly how much. I bought this for $50. I believe the M390 is $70-ish. So there you go. Now, it's fascinating to watch the way that this is covered. I do my best to not watch knife review videos as a knife reviewer. I watch reviews as a knife buyer, so that, because I don't like spending money on things that I won't like. But I had to take notice how people cover this, because it was fascinating. Because in every video that the Dividend is featured, they are comparing it either to the Leak or the Link. The Leak is Kershaw's most popular, probably their most popular model, so it's available in almost every version under the sun. And the Link is similar also in that I believe it is also 420 HC, but is also available in M390. And my version has GRN handles, but aluminum scales are also available for similar price points. And given blade shape, materials, kind of company status, kind of how Kershaw is treating them, general size, the action, especially how it opens, the lock, the clip, in particular with these two. This really is kind of an in-betweener between the Leak and the Link. If these two got very freaky, the Dividend is kind of what would happen out of that. So everybody is comparing it either to the Leak or the Link. They're both right. There are similarities in both. It's kind of like members of those two production teams got together and said, "Hey, what can we learn from one another?" And the Dividend is a boon to the world. It makes this world a better place, I feel. Great is the blade. It's fairly Warncliffian in that it is fairly straight. There's a little bit of a belly, a little bit of a sweep. But if what you're looking for is a Wharncliffe, a straight blade with a very narrow point, very precise tip, this hits that in spades. My favorite thing about this, and I already referenced it, how thin the handle is, but also how thin the blade is. That makes this a wonderful, wonderful slicer, because it will just go through anything like it's not even there, because it barely is such a thin blade. That means that this is not in any way ideal for harder use, but just don't baton with a folding blade. There you go. Especially not a liner lock speed safe. Those tend not to end well. But this blade, for my purposes, which, as I have said, is, food prep, very minor cutting, strings off of clothes, opening boxes, stuff like that. This is perfect, and I love it. Skip details, I'll come back to that. The pocket clip is good. Also, the throwability, fantastic. Pocket clip is very good. That, as you can see, is the standard. Which pocket clip do I want to use? There we go. Is the Kershaw's standard 2-hole clip. Kershaw uses 2 main clips. One is the 2 holes to the side. One is the 2 holes up and down. This is obviously that. So if you want to put a deep carry on it, you can very easily do that. And I actually did. I believe it was this clip in particular. But while it was in my pocket in this configuration, the tip caught on a seatbelt and ripped it up. So I switched it out because I realized deep, and this feels weird for me in particular to say, but deep carry is not explicitly necessary on this because they did it correctly. Yes, that much of the blade is sticking out, and I'm not a huge fan of that, but, you know, you can easily fix that. And the lanyard hole is pushed to the side. That is the correct position for a lanyard hole. It's a second-class citizen, especially on a blade of this type. This is not your harder use, go cut down a tree type deal. This isn't a PM2. So push that lanyard hole to the side and give the pocket clip precedence. Precedence? Yes. So this clip, even though it is not itself deep carry, it is pushed way up to the tippy top and given as much room as can be had. I appreciate that. Good job, Kershaw. Good job, Kershaw. The clip is great. And it is also 4-position. Tip up and tip down, left and right. The lock is great. As you can see right there, you can see the liner through you can see the lock through the handle. Very similar to the Link. And to the Leak. That's, if I remember those videos properly, that was my favorite thing about them. What that means is that you can just very easily disengage it. You don't have to hunt for it. You don't have to scrape up your fingers trying to get your thumb in there. It's great. It works fantastic. Good lockup. Very solid. This is a very thin liner to use as your lock, but once again, this is not your going to war knife. So a thinner lock stock is great because it's such a thin blade stock that there's no point in having a thick liner. Action. Just stellar. Dog, that is a satisfying opening. Pa! Alright, where's the microphone? Please don't hit myself. I hope you heard that, and I hope it made you happy, because it makes me happy. Durability, kind of a weird one to have on a blade like this, but I'm sure everyone who has ever carried a knife for more than a week can sympathize with leaving knives in your pockets and sending them through the washer. That happens to because I am a forgetful, dumb person, that happens to every knife that I have at least once. I'd accidentally leave it clipped into my back pocket, and I see it a couple of days later with a fresh shine. That has happened to this more times than I can count, because I carry it so much, because it is so thin and discreet, because it is so small and so light. I don't often talk about weight here, but it is very light. But because it is almost everything that I want out of a pocket knife, I forget about it. So I have sent this through the washer a fair handful of times, washer and dryer, both. And the fact that it still does that, the fact that it still has a beautiful scale, beautiful finish, the fact that, you know, lockup is still solid and no parts of this are anywhere near failing. I have done to this accidentally, albeit. I have done to this what to a lesser knife would take years off of its lifespan. And it's still fine. It is still unfazed, and I appreciate that. I like that quite a bit. So throw this in the washer as much as you want. It ain't going anywhere. Now we can go back up to details. This right there is an American flag, and it is there to symbolize that this is a completely American-made production. Much like the Kershaw Link, the aluminum version of this, and I did not know this because I have never handled an aluminum, but the aluminum version of this also has that American flag in the same spot. All right. Completely American made, uses an American steel 420HC, and has kind of an American model number. The Dividend, can you see that? I'll tell you. The Dividend is Kershaw model 1812, referencing the War of 1812, or as it was known at the time, the Second War of Independence. The Link is 1776, or as it was known at the time, the original War of Independence, the OG War of ND. So this being American made, having referencing in American history, thank you, and having an American flag on all of this, it's great. I'm a fan. Interesting point about this flag. Initially, your brain is probably telling you, wait, that's backwards. And I know that because my brain told me that, but that's because my brain is dumb. What this flag is actually referencing is the American flag patch worn on the shoulders of soldiers. Now, if you ever see a flag like that with the stars down, that is a symbol of distress. However, military code dictates that the stars are to be shown to the right, because, as I have depicted in this glorious illustration, this is essentially a flag going to battle. What the stars being to the right is referencing is it being held up and the wind pushing it backwards as the unit charges forward. And this is... I may have actually watched this since I drew that, because it's starting to fade a little bit. But that's awesome. I like that. So this is in keeping with military regulations. This is by no means a hard-use military knife, as far as I can tell. But that's just cool, man. I like that. And other details as well. The fact that this cutout fits perfectly in there with that little choil. It's kind of a pointless choil. It's not big enough for your finger. It's not positioned right for sharpening. But you can put your finger in there, I guess. This little space out here in the back that kind of replicates it on the opposite side. This is just a really, really well-made knife. The back spacer, it's some kind of plasticky. I don't think it's G10, but whatever it is, there are little harmonica looking cutouts. That's what it reminds me of. I'm a fan. Size, this is perfect. 3 inches, lightweight, only 4-ish inches in the pocket, and very thin once closed. I adore this blade. Everything about it is great. I tried coming up with things that I don't like about it. It's entirely possible that at some point I will make a video about things that I found that I dislike, but I do not have anything to put on that list currently. Kershaw sells this particular model for $70. Blade HQ houses it for $42. Amazon, you can find it for $42. And I bought this proudly from Cabela's for $50. And it was well worth it. The steel's iffy, I guess, at 420 HC. It's fine, but it's not great. But everything else is solid. And this blade, not a huge fan of the blade shape, but its stock thickness, its length, everything else about it is perfect. Out of 5 stars, I give this a yes, essentially. And once again, I give this such a yes that I am working on getting this in the upgraded steel. So if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know down below. If you have thoughts about this blade in particular, let me know. And other than that, you folks have a great day.